Hi students, a very good afternoon to you all. I hope you all are staying safe at home, following all the precautions. In the last session which was being taught by me, we have learnt about digestive system, what is happening to the food we have taken inside, how it is passing through the alimentary canal, and what are the various types of digestions that are taking place, that is both the chemical and mechanical digestion. So in today's session we will be moving a little further into it. But before that, I wanted to know whether you all have completed the project work which I have given you in the previous session. What was my project work in the previous session? It was about what is the use of the villi in the small intestine. I hope you all would have got the answer, that is to increase the absorption surface area, that is to increase the area for the absorption process. Apart from that, I have given you one more question. Name a vertebrate which will be changing its alimentary canal length according to the stages in its life. The example is frog. You might think how it is. You know that frog, when it is in the starting stage, that is when it hatches from the eggs, they form a tadpole. Tadpole is herbivorous in nature, whereas the adult frog is strictly carnivores. In herbivores, the alimentary canal will be long, whereas in the carnivores, the alimentary canal will be short when compared to the herbivores. So the answer for that is frog. So we have completed the project work of that previous session. Those who couldn't get it, please note down. Now moving into today's session. Before moving into today's session, I would like to ask you a few questions. Now you want to have your dinner. As soon as my class is finished, you want to go for your lunch. So your mother will prepare everything and put it on the table so that you can go serve and eat it. You will just directly go and start eating it from the bowl in which she has placed everything? No. What do you need? Your mother will be asking you to bring a plate, a spoon, a glass to pour the water and drink. What are all these things called? The plate, it may be the spoon or the glass. They are called as the accessory things that are required for you to complete the process. One more common example, you want to sit and do your homework. You will just take the textbook, notebook and sit down and start doing the work? No. What else do you require? Yes, you require a pen, a pencil, a scale, eraser, whatever according to the work you do. So what are these all called? These are all called as the accessory things that are required for you to complete the process called as eating the food or completing your homework. In the same way, whatever the process of digestion we have learned in the previous session, it will be incomplete without the help of the accessory organs which are called as digestive glands. So today's session is about digestive glands. We will be learning about digestive glands which function as an important organs, releasing all their secretions to complete the process of digestion. Now there are few questions here. You will be getting the answers during my session only, but before that think of these questions. Which organ in humans perform 500 vital functions? Which organ will be performing 500 vital functions, and what is the importance of the bile juice in our body, even though it does not have any enzymes? In the last session I have told you about many enzymes which will be helping in the breakdown of the carbohydrates, fats and proteins, but there is a juice which will be secreted in our body which does not have any enzymes, but it is very important. How it is important and in what way is it helping in the process of digestion, we will be learning it, but try to think as my session is going on. So coming to the digestive glands now, as I told you, digestive glands are nothing but the accessory glands which are present in the body. They are not a part of the alimentary canal. Remember children, we are having two types of glands here again, digestive glands. You may say that few are not a part of the alimentary canal, like your salivary glands, and try to recollect other glands which are there, because I have told you already in the previous session, and which are present in the tract, that is in the GI tract or your alimentary canal. So they are divided into two types which are present along with the in the alimentary canal, and which are the glands which are not in the alimentary canal but which are adjacent to it. Examples, can you tell other than salivary glands? Yes, other than salivary glands you are having liver and you are having pancreas. So all these are the glands which are associated with the digestive system or which are not present in the GI tract but are supporting it, whereas the glands which are present in the GI are the intestinal glands. What are they? They are the intestinal glands. So altogether we are having 5 different types of digestive glands, that is your liver, gallbladder, pancreas and salivary glands, as I have spoken to you. So, apart from this salivary, gastric, intestinal, liver and pancreas, all these glands will be releasing their secretions, which will be helping in the process of the digestion. So, note down what are the 5 different types of the digestive glands which are present in our body. They are the salivary glands, gastric glands, intestinal glands, liver and pancreas. Salivary glands, liver and pancreas are not present in the GI tract, but they are attached to the digestive system, whereas the gastric glands and the intestinal glands are a part of our GI tract. So, first we will be learning about our salivary glands. Do you remember, children, where are they present and how many types of glands are there? Because I have already told you in the previous session, but I will be telling you clearly now. So, coming to the first type of gland, that is the salivary glands. So, there are 3 types of salivary glands which are present in our digestive system or a part of the system. Just try to look at me so that you will know the location. Look at me, you will be having one pair of salivary glands over here just below your ear pinna. They are called as the parotid glands. You will be having one pair just below your tongue. They are called as the sublingual glands, and you will be having one pair just below your jaws. They are called as submaxillary glands. I will be just showing you the slide so you can have the clear picture of the view where are they present. So, you are having 3 pairs of salivary glands. Where are they? One just below the ear pinna. You can look it clearly when you have a side view of it. One are there below your tongue and one is below your jaw. So, these are the 3 pairs of the salivary glands which will be secreting saliva in our mouth. And children, these parotid glands are nothing but the poisonous glands in the snakes. You all know that snakes will be secreting poison. So, where we will be saying that snakes are having poisonous glands. So, what are those poisonous glands? These parotid glands are only converted into poisonous glands in the snakes. Apart from that, you all are aware of a disease called as mumps, where you can see the swollen throat. That is nothing but these parotid glands, whenever they are infected by a virus, they swell or they swell or become big in size, and you will be calling that type of infection as mumps. Now, what do these 3 salivary glands do? What is their function? These salivary glands will be secreting a juice or a watery fluid called as saliva. You all know we will be always getting saliva in the mouth. What is its importance and why do we need to secrete the saliva? Try to think, children. As I have already told in the previous session, one main function is in the helping in the process of digestion. How is it helping in the process of digestion? It is making the food soft. Whenever you add something like watery substance to some substance, it makes soft. Whenever you add water to the colors, when you are drawing, when you are using the watercolors, when you add water to it, it becomes soft and smooth. So, in the same way, when the food is being crushed by our teeth, it will be little hard in nature. So, when the saliva comes into action, it will be making it as a smooth thing which helps it to swallow easily. At the same time, this saliva also helps us to speak. It helps in speech. Try to imagine a situation where you have not drank the water for a long time, you will be not able to speak clearly. Your throat start becoming dry and you will be feeling like I should have water now. So, if the saliva is secreted, your mouth is always moist and it helps in speeching also. So, now let us just look at the functions of the saliva. Before that, as I will just give you the main functions of saliva. As I told you, it helps in lubricating the food and making it easy to swallow and also helps in speech. And how much saliva is secreted per day in our body, children? In our body, around 800 ml to 1500 ml saliva is being secreted in a single human per day. It is 1500 ml means it is almost all 1.5 liters. So, you can think of the thumbs up bottle which you will be using or any juice bottle, how much it is. So, saliva is a mixture of all salivary glands and it is secreted or it is being released 1 liter or sometimes 1.5 liters, and as I told you, the functions are to make the food swallow easily. Now, let us see the functions of the saliva. What are the various functions of the saliva? It keeps the mouth moist, It helps in swallowing, as I told you, because it makes the food very soft. It helps in speech. It keeps the mouth and teeth also clean, because saliva is like a water. Whenever we want to clean our mouth, we will be putting the water and try to clean the mouth. In the same way, this watery substance called saliva helps in keeping the mouth and the teeth clean. It is also doing the antimicrobial action. If you remember, I told you saliva releases a chemical or a enzyme called as salivary amylase in our body. Apart from that, there was one more enzyme that will be released by it, which is nothing but lysozyme. And what was the function of the lysozyme, children? It will be killing the microbes that are entering into the body or entering into our mouth along with the food material whatever we are taking. And also it acts, saliva acts as a bicarbonate in buffering. What do you mean by buffering? Bicarbonates. You remember about acids and bases which you have studied in your chemistry. So bicarbonates will be changing the food into basic. Any acidic food you will be taking in, this saliva will be able to buffer, means counter it back, so that most acidic food doesn't become dangerous for your body. So these are all the functions of the saliva. Apart from this, coming to the histology of the salivary glands, you will be having two types of cells here, mucus cells and serous cells. These mucus cells and serous cells will be releasing the serous cells will be releasing salivary amylase, whereas the mucus cells will be releasing the mucus. Mucus is nothing but the sticky substance which helps in keeping all our body organs moist and does not dry up. So this was all about salivary glands. To just take a short view of it, there are three pairs which are present in the various positions, that is the parotid glands which are present below your ear pinna, and then the sublingual and submaxillary. Around 800 to 1500 ml of saliva is released. In the saliva you will be having two enzymes, salivary amylase and lysozyme. And this salivary amylase, what does it do? It starts the digestion of the starch in the mouth, and it has two types of cells, serous cells and mucus cells, which will be releasing mucus and this salivary amylase. So this was all about the salivary glands. Now what is the next gland that we have to study? After the salivary glands, we will be having, try to remember what is the next organ after the mouth in our body. After the mouth, the food will be swallowed into the esophagus. As I told you, there doesn't take place any digestion in the esophagus because there are no glands, no enzymes released. So which is the next one? The next organ is stomach. And what are the glands which are present in the stomach called? Gastric glands. If you remember, children, in the digestion session I have told you that these gastric glands will be releasing the gastric juice, which plays an important role in the digestion of the food. Just like look at the slide, children. Where are the gastric glands present? Gastric glands are present in the stomach all over. There are three types of gastric glands actually. They are the fundus pyloric glands, cardiac glands, and the other one is nothing but the chief glands which are present. Now according to the position where they are present, these glands are being given the name. Cardiac glands, they are present very close or in the beginning of the stomach, so they are called as the cardiac glands. The main function of these cardiac glands is, cardiac glands will be releasing mucus, which will be helping in the protection of the wall. Why the wall have to be protected? We have studied in the previous class that HCl acid will be released. So that HCl acid may affect the wall of the stomach. So the wall of the stomach have to be protected. So the cardiac glands will be secreting mucus, which will be helping in protecting the stomach wall. Next will be the pyloric glands. What does this glands secrete? These glands will be secreting mucus. Along with that, they will be secreting the gastric hormone also, which will be releasing the gastrin juice, which helps in the process of the digestion. Now the next is the oxyntic glands. These oxyntic glands, they will be releasing two, that is the HCl acid. Apart from that, they will be releasing Cazel's intrinsic factor also. Now what is the function of these two? HCl, as you already know, these help in killing the microorganisms in our body. Now, what does this Casel's intrinsic factor do? This factor will be helping in the absorption of vitamin B12. When we were studying about the process of absorption in the previous class, I told you that all the vitamins will be directly absorbed into the intestine, because there is no process of digestion much required over there. But for the vitamin B12, there is a special factor or a special substance released by the oxyntic cells of the which will be helping in the absorption of the vitamin B12. So, these are the cardiac, pyloric and oxyntic cells. Apart from that, in these oxyntic glands, there are 3 types of cells. One will be the chief cells. These chief cells will be releasing the proenzymes. What are the proenzymes? Do you remember, children, when we are learning about the process of digestion? There will be proenzymes called as pepsinogen that is released along with prorenin. So, these pepsinogen and prorenin are the inactive forms of the enzyme, and whenever the gastric juice is being released, it will be acting and converting the pepsinogen into pepsin and prorenin into renin, and further the digestion of the carbohydrates will be taking place. Look at the slide, children, what are the various things which are being done. So, the gastric glands which are present just below the epithelium or just below the surface of the epithelial cells in the stomach, they will be releasing the mucus which will be helping in protecting the wall of the stomach. Apart from that, they are having the chief cells which will be releasing pepsinogen and lipase and also the prorenin. Apart from that, even the mucus neck cells are present in the oxyntic glands which will be releasing the mucus to reduce the acidic nature of the HCl gas that is being released. So, these are all the functions of the gastric glands. So, what are the functions of this gastric gland? I will just try to summarize once again, children. Look onto the board. Gastric glands, where are they present? They are present just below the epithelium of the stomach wall. There are 3 types of gastric glands present. They are the cardiac, pyloric and oxyntic glands. Cardiac glands will be secreting the mucus which helps in protecting the body from the HCl, that is protecting the stomach wall. Pyloric, it will be releasing the gastric juice. Oxyntic cells, there are the chief cells. These oxyntic glands will be having 3 cells. One are the chief cells which will be releasing the proenzymes, that is the pepsinogen and the prorenin, and the other type of cells will be releasing the HCl acid and the Casel's intrinsic factor which will be helping in the absorption of the vitamin B12. Apart from that, these gastric glands will be also secreting a little amount of lipase enzyme, gastric lipase, which helps in the starting of the lipid digestion in the stomach. Now, moving to the next type of the glands. Now, after the stomach, what we will be having? You know that in the GI tract, after the stomach, we will be having the intestine. But before moving into the intestine, we have 2 associated glands with it. What are they? They are the liver and the pancreas which are associated. So, first let us study about the liver. Do you all know, children, liver is a very important organ in our body, and what is its weight? Liver is around 1.2 to 1.5 kg. And do you know where is its location? It is located in the thoracic abdominal cavity. It is located, this is called the thoracic cavity and this is the abdominal cavity. Just beside your stomach, that is in the right side, you will be having the liver below the diaphragm. If you have remember the your respiratory system, you will be having the lungs, below which you will be having a muscular organ called as diaphragm. So, in the just below the diaphragm, you will be having your liver which is towards the right side, which is in the abdominal cavity. So, this liver, which is an important organ and weighing 1.2 to 1.5 kg, which is lying in the abdominal cavity in the right side just below your diaphragm, plays many important roles apart from digestion also. We will be learning what are all those important functions, but before knowing that, let us know what is the structure of the liver. this liver is made up of hepatic lobules. What is this liver made up of? Hepatic lobules. As you all know, cell is the structural and functional unit of our body. In the same way, the hepatic lobules are also the structural and functional unit of a cell, of the liver. Now, this liver is having two lobules. I will just show you. The liver will be having two lobules. These two lobules are covered by a sheath called as Glinson's capsule. What are they called as? Glinson's capsule. This capsule is nothing but a thin connective tissue. Okay, if this is the structure of the liver, it is made up of two lobules. So, these two lobules are connected together or covered by a thin sheet of connective tissue, which is called as the Glinson's capsule. And now these are called as the lobes. These lobes are made up of nothing but the hepatic lobules. What are they made up of? Hepatic lobules. These are the structural and functional units of the liver lobules. Now, this hepatic lobule, if you take a look at the structure of this hepatic lobule on the slide, you can see, children, it is made up of many hepatocytes. Hepatocytes are nothing but the hepatic cells. The site is cell. You already have learned it in your botany and zoology in your first year. Site always refers to cell. So, there are a row of hepatic cells arranged one behind the other in the hepatic lobe. Okay, and in the center you are having a central vein. Are you observing, children? The blue color dot is nothing but the central vein. So, all the hepatic cells are arranged around the central vein in the hepatic cords. Cords means like a line, they are arranged one below the other. They are not randomly arranged. Okay, and you are having sinusoids in between. These sinusoids are the empty spaces in between the hepatic cells which are present in the hepatic lobules. Children, sinuses are empty spaces which are present in our body. You can even observe few of them saying that I have the sinus problem, especially in this rainy season. This sinus is nothing but you will be having some empty spaces in your body. The sinus is the people who are suffering from this sinusitis, the mucus which is being generated during this cold season or whenever they have cool water or whenever they are exposed to more cool air, these sinuses, that are the empty gaps, are being filled up with the mucus, which makes them feel as if their faces or they are bearing a heavy weight, and all these get swollen up. You might have observed people having these type of symptoms during the summer rainy season or this winter season, whenever they are facing the problem of sinus. So, whenever you hear sinuses in the life sciences anywhere, it generally refers to the empty spaces in your body. And these hepatic cells, they will be producing a juice called as what? We have already learned that what does a juice that is being produced by the liver? It will be producing a juice called as the bile juice. What is it? Bile juice. So, these hepatic cells will be producing a juice called as bile juice. And do you all know where is this bile juice produced, stored in our body? We will be having an organ on the liver. If this is the liver, you will be having a small organ. You will be drawing an organ like this on the liver. What is this? This is nothing but a small muscular structure which is called as the gallbladder. So, whatever the bile juice that is being produced by the hepatic cells, it is stored temporarily in the gallbladder. Now, whatever the duct of the gallbladder is there, it is called as the cystic duct. Now, why does it require a duct? Duct is nothing but a small tube like structure from which the bile juice which is being produced by the gallbladder will be released into the duodenum. That is the first part of the intestine, if you remember. I have told you, into the duodenum what are all the different juices that come in. Into the liver you will be getting the bile juice, and also the pancreatic juice will also be poured into the duodenum. We will be learning about the pancreatic juice very soon. So, the duct of the gallbladder, which is called as the cystic duct, will be joining with the hepatic duct of the liver, and both of them together they form the common bile duct. These common bile duct will be attaching with the pancreatic duct. What is this CBD? CBD is nothing but the common bile duct. So, the CBD will be joining with the pancreatic duct. From where will be the pancreatic duct released? Pancreatic duct will be from the pancreas. So, both of them together come and they form the common hepatopancreatic duct. What it is called as? Hepatopancreatic duct. Why it is called as hepatopancreatic duct? Because hepato is a duct from the liver, pancreatic means a duct from the pancreas. So, both of them join together and then they are being released, or the duct is being directed towards the duodenum of the small intestine. I will be just showing you the pic so that you understand it in a better way. You all know that this will be our liver and we will be having the gallbladder, and you will be having your stomach here, below which you will be having the leaf shaped pancreas, okay, and this stomach will be leading to our duodenum. So, this is your duodenum, this will be your pancreas which will be releasing the pancreatic juice, or this will be your pancreatic duct, this one, and this will be your cystic duct, or this will be your common bile duct. So, this common bile duct and these both of them join together and they will be releasing into the duodenum. I will just show you the picture so that you will be clear about it. Look at the slide, children. Are you able to see how the duct from the gallbladder is coming and forming the common bile duct, and the ducts from the liver are coming, and both of them are joining with the pancreatic duct into the duodenum, forming the hepatopancreatic duct. Take a clear look at the slide, children, how the different glands are releasing their juices into the duodenum, forming the ducts. One duct from the gallbladder and the one duct from the liver, both of them are joining to form the common bile duct, that will be coming and joining with the pancreatic duct. So, these two ducts where they join, it is called as the hepatopancreatic duct, okay, and this hepatopancreatic duct will be releasing both the bile juice and pancreatic juice into the duodenum for the further process of the digestion. So, this was the structure of the liver and how it is doing. Now, coming to the functions of the liver. Liver is, as I told you in the beginning itself, liver is a very important organ in our body, and there was a question in the beginning for you which I have asked you. Name the organ which will be performing 500 different functions in our body. That organ is nothing but your liver. So, this liver performs many functions in our body that are around 500. We can't learn all the 500 functions, but all the main functions I will be listing down now. First, just take a look at the slide, children. As I told you, what are the different 500 vital functions we will be learning in this session. That is, it protects immunity against the infections. It is a factory for the proteins and cholesterol. That is, it produces the proteins and cholesterol. It excretes the waste from our body with the help of the bile. It regulates blood clotting. I will be telling you what do you mean by blood clotting, or how it is regulating the waste or excreting the waste from our body. It clears blood from the drugs and the chemicals and the alcohol. It converts excess glucose into starch for storage, and it also excretes bile for fat digestion, or it also secretes the bile for the digestion. Try to take a pic of this, children, if you have a phone with you, so that you will have a overall look what are the different functions of the liver. That is, the destroying the RBC, processing the nutrients, regulating the blood composition, producing bile, detoxifying the blood, breakdown of the alcohol and the medications, that is the medicines you are taking, and controlling 500 metabolic processes and producing the proteins and cholesterol. Now, we will be learning them one by one. The first main function of the liver is to production of the bile juice. Okay. Bile juice is greenish yellow in color, and this bile juice contains two important things, that are the salts and the pigments, bile salts and the bile pigments. And an important point to remember, children, bile juice does not have any enzymes. I have asked you a question in the beginning of the session, even though bile juice is not having any enzymes, why is it important? Now listen to this, you will be getting the answer for that. Bile juice, which does not have enzymes in it, is playing an important role in digestion. How? One is during the fat digestion. It helps in the fat digestion. Okay. Now what are these bile salts and bile pigments? Bile salts are nothing but the glycocholates and taurocholate salts. This you will be learning in your chemistry. What are the glycocholates and taurocolates of sodium and potassium? So these bile salts are nothing but the glycocholates and taurocolates of sodium and potassium. The bile pigments are nothing but the bilirubin and biliverdin. These are the two bile pigments which are present in the bile juice. These are formed from the damaged or the old RBC. You know that the RBC lifespan is 120 days in our body. So what happens after this 120 days? They have to be destructed. So when the RBC are being destructed, the hemoglobin which is present in the RBC will be forming these two bile pigments which are called as bilirubin and biliverdin. They don't have much function to do, they are just secreted out from our body. That is, whatever the hemoglobin that is being damaged is excreted out from our body in the form of bilirubin and biliverdin along with our fecal matter, that is the undigested food in our body. And these glycocholates and taurocolates help in the fat digestion process. So this was the first function. What is that? The production of the bile juice, which is aiding or helping in fat digestion and also excreting out these damaged RBC hemoglobin in the form of these pigments. Now the next function is it helps in the carbohydrate metabolism. Look at the board clearly, children. There are few reactions or the few processes which are taking place here, which plays a vital role in our body. It is helping in carbohydrate metabolism. How is it? Using the carbohydrates which we are supplying through the food. There are many different processes that are going inside our body to maintain the level of carbohydrates in our body. That is, whenever it has to be required, it has to be used up. That is, I take some food now. One example I will be giving you. Your father will be bringing daily 1 kg of rice from the shop to cook in your home. No, it is not like that. What do? Generally, we bring some bags of rice and then store it in our house. And whenever we require it daily for the cooking process, your mother removes it from the bag and you start your cooking process. In the same way, we don't supply the food, the body needs the supply of energy continuously throughout the day and even the night. Throughout the life you need energy. Are we going on eating continuously to satisfy the needs of our body? No. We are eating at a different time, 3 meals or 4 meals a day, and that food is stored in our body. And whenever we are in the need of energy, that stored food is being used. So carbohydrate, you know, in the process of digestion, it is converted into glucose. These glucose, how much the body requires at that point of time, it will be used up, and whatever the remaining is there, it is being converted into a product called as glycogen. These glycogen, the process of conversion of these glucose into glycogen, it is nothing but called as glycogenesis. Remember this terminology, children. It is called as glycogenesis. Now this is, we take the carbohydrates, it is being digested into glucose, and the glucose whichever is extra, whichever is remain, we are converting it into glycogen, which is being stored in the liver again, and with this process is called as glycogenesis. Now suddenly I couldn't take the food on time, so my body is in the need of glucose now. So what will the body do then? The body will start converting this glycogen back into glucose, because we need glucose. The body can't use glycogen, it is the stored form. So this process of converting the stored glycogen back into glucose, it is called as glycogenolysis. You know children, lysis means always breaking. So here we are breaking glycogen back again into glucose so that our body can use it. After these glycogenolysis and glycogenesis, you are having one more process in the carbohydrate metabolism, that is gluconeogenesis. Gluco means glucose, neo means new, genesis means production, that is the production of the glucose. We generally know that from carbohydrate the body is producing the glucose, but in this process called as gluconeogenesis, apart from carbohydrates, whatever the remaining other food nutrients are there in our body, from that also the liver will be producing the glucose. So that is generally from the pyruvates. You will be learning this in your second year in detail, what are these pyruvates in botany. So from these pyruvates the glucose is produced by the liver. That process is called as glucogenesis, gluconeogenesis. So what are the three important processes that are taking place in the carbohydrates? Glycogenesis, glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis. So these three processes play an important role in maintaining the carbohydrates level in our body, that is carbohydrate metabolism. So in all these things, who is playing the major role here? Again the liver. Okay. So in this way the liver is playing an important role in maintaining the carbohydrate level in our body. So this was the one more function. The next function is maintaining the or adjusting the lipid or maintaining the lipid metabolism. How does it maintain the lipid metabolism? So coming to the lipid metabolism, it will be helping in the production and control of the cholesterol that is present in our body. Cholesterol in our body. So whatever the cholesterol that is being produced in our body, or whatever the lipids that have to be stored in our body, you know that whenever the extra fat is being taken into our body, it is being stored under the skin as the adipose tissue. You all remember it. Okay. So all these process is being controlled by the liver, that is the lipid metabolism is also under the control of the liver. Coming to the next function, this liver is also helping in the detoxification process. What do you mean by detoxification? Toxin means, you know, something which is harmful to our body. So detoxifying is trying to remove or trying to lessen the effect of that drugs or the toxics whichever are entering into our body. Now what are the toxins which we are taking? We don't take any toxins or poison into our body wantedly. So what is that? You know, many of the people drink alcohol. We take medicines whenever we whenever we have ill health or whenever we are suffering from fever or cold, we immediately go to the medical shop or doctor and he prescribes few medicines, we start taking. Those are all called as drugs. Okay. Drugs have two meaning, children. Drugs which are not used for our body, which are just taken to have some fun and to which are the destructive drugs. But the drugs which we take from the doctor to reduce our ill effect, they are also called as the drugs. And whenever we are taking those drugs also, many chemicals are entering into our body. So before anything that is entering into our blood circulation, whatever the alcohol the people are consuming or whatever the drugs we are taking, all those things are detoxified by the liver first. Whatever the drugs which are entering into our body, they first are getting detoxified in the liver and then they are released into the blood. It doesn't mean that it completely detoxifies, but it tries to reduce as much as it tries to reduce the bad effect of those drugs into our body. And generally you could have seen that the people who are having alcohol, that is on a regular basis, they will be suffering from the liver problem. What is the reason in why the liver is getting affected? Because this liver is the organ which is detoxifying the alcohol that is being consumed by the people. Okay. So they will be suffering from a disease called as liver cirrhosis. Take a look at the slide, children. What is the condition of the normal liver and the liver with the cirrhosis? So, this liver cirrhosis generally happens to the people who will be consuming a lot of drugs, that is the medicines, at the same time drinking a lot of alcohol. It damages the liver. You can see the difference between the texture or the outer part of the normal liver, how smooth it is, and the liver with the cirrhosis, how all the scars are being produced on it, and sometimes it may also lead to damage of the liver also. So, why all this is happening is because of the detoxification process that is being done by the liver. In specially, you have remember about the cell biology you have learned in your school and also in your botany in the first year. You will be studying about endoplasmic reticulum. In that you are having two types, that is the smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. When you are learning about the functions of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, you will be saying that it will be helping in lipid production and also helps in the process of detoxification, if you remember it, children. So, this detoxification is nothing but this process only. So, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum in the liver cells will be helping in the process of detoxification and tries to protect the body as much as it can. So, this is one more important function of the liver. Apart from this, the other function that are being performed by the liver are, the liver will be producing few of the proteins that are being required for the process of blood clotting, anticoagulants. What are all those? I will be telling you. The liver will be producing plasma proteins. You know that our blood is having plasma also. Our blood is made up of, do you remember, children? What do you mean by, what is the composition of the blood? It will be having plasma and the cells. Okay. The blood without the cells is nothing but the plasma. Okay. What are the cells of the blood? RBC, WBC and the platelets. Okay. So, when you filter away the blood with these, or when you filter away these cells from the blood, the liquid part which is left out is nothing but the plasma. So, plasma proteins are produced by the liver. They are nothing but the globins. Apart from these plasma proteins, the liver also produced clotting factors. What do you mean by the clotting factors? Children, whenever you have a wound or a cut in your hand, you see that there will be a blood flow. After just 5 seconds, 6 seconds, depending upon the depth of the wound again, what happens? The blood will stop flowing. It gets coagulated, or it stops, it gets coagulated. What do you mean by that? Whatever the liquid blood is present, you know the blood is in the form of liquid in our body. What is happening? It is getting coagulated, or it becomes little solidified. You can see, you all might have experienced it also, but you don't know that that is the clotting process that is happening in our body. So, what is happening over there is, whenever there is a cut or whenever there is a, again remember children, not major accidents or major cuts. Okay. Whenever you have a small wound where the blood clotting can try to block it, there will be factors which will be released by the body called as clotting factors, which will be trying to block the blood from flowing out of your body. Okay. So, who is producing that blood clotting factors? Again the liver is helping in the production of the blood clotting factors. One of those factors are nothing but the prothrombin. You have many factors actually which you will be studying in your coming up lessons. One of the example is prothrombin. Apart from that, it also produces a anticoagulant called as heparin. What is this anticoagulant, children? You all might have gone for the blood test, or you might have seen your parents or your grandparents going for the blood test. What do they do? They take a syringe, take out the blood from the body, and they will be putting in a small vial or a small cylindrical plastic tube. As soon as they drop the blood into the tube, they start shaking it. Why do they do it? Look at the board, children. This is the small vial or the tube. Okay. In this, before they pour the blood of the particular patient, whoever they have been removed from the body, they will be putting an anticoagulant here. What is the function of this anticoagulant is, this anticoagulant does not allow the blood to solidify. Remember children, whenever your blood is being exposed, that is whenever your blood is exposed to the external atmosphere or removed from your body, it starts coagulating or becomes solidified, and if it becomes solidified, you can't do any tests whatever is required for that blood sample. So they will be putting an anticoagulant into that, which is heparin is our natural anticoagulant, and they start shaking the veil, if you have observed. Why do they shake? So that this anticoagulant mixes with the blood sample. Okay, when it mixes with the blood sample, it does not coagulate and it remains in the liquid state only, so that the further investigation can be done on the sample. So that anticoagulants are also being produced by the liver in our body. And the other functions of the liver are, it will be also producing some important things that are required for our body, like it will be helping in regulating the body temperature. You know, we are cold blooded, we are the warm blooded animals, that is our body temperature has to be maintained constant. We can't change our body temperature according to the surroundings. Our body temperature is always, has to be always constant, that is the 37 degree centigrade or 1 degree Fahrenheit. Now this body temperature constancy is being done with the help of the liver, apart from the skeletal muscle. You know, we are having the muscles which are attached to our body, which are called skeletal muscles. So at the help of these muscles, even this liver also helps in the process of regulating the body temperature, and that process is called as thermogenesis. Okay children, it also helps in this process, that is maintaining the body temperature. Apart from this, one more example from our daily life only I will be giving you, where again liver plays an important role. Whenever you are writing your exam, that is about to be the end of the exam, just before 10 minutes you got remembered of an answer and it is very long. You want to write the answer, you know it, you want to score the marks, but your hand won't be supporting at that point of time. What happens over here is, whenever you are continuously going on writing the exam for that 1.5 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, the glucose is being continuously supplied to your hand. At a stage comes where your body will not be able to completely oxidize the food which is required by you to reduce or to give out glucose. I will just tell you in a simple term, whatever the food we are taking, it is being digested into glucose. From the glucose, it is being converted into, or it is being supplied to the body parts. Okay, where it is happening in the cells, it is happening. Okay, and it is a continuous process which is happening with the help of the oxygen which we are taking it. Glucose and oxygen undergo oxidation process and the energy is being released, and this is a process that is happening continuously in our body. But when you are writing or whenever you are working for a long period of time, this process which is called as an aerobic respiration, that is happening in the presence of oxygen, will be converted into anaerobic respiration. What do you mean by this anaerobic respiration is, like that you are in the need of the glucose now. So what does the body do? It does not completely oxidize the glucose, it oxidizes only a little and supplies us the energy. That is how much energy is formed. Chalo, you take it and complete the work that is being done. So during this incomplete oxidation of the food, there will be a acid released in our muscles called as lactic acid. You can feel that your hand is not able to move. You start feeling your hand heavy when you want to write the exam, but you won't be able to write. That is because of the accumulation of lactic acid in your muscles. So this lactic acid again is being circulated back into the liver, where it again converts into the glucose and sends into the body. So this process of converting this lactic acid into glucose is also being done by the liver. Apart from this, the liver also performs many functions in our body to support our system or the whole body, not only the digestive system. So we have studied about liver now, and it plays a very major role in our body. Now after this, we are going to study the next glands, which are nothing but the intestinal glands. What are they called as? The intestinal glands. Now where are these intestinal glands present? The name itself is saying that they are present in the intestine. Now just take a look at the picture, children. These are the intestinal glands which are present in the intestine. They are of two types, or two types of intestinal glands are present, which are called as the Brunner's glands and the crypts of Lieberkühn. These are the two types of glands which are present in the intestine. Now, these two glands play a major role. These Brunner's glands which are present, they will be releasing the mucosa, and they will be helping in the process of helping the mucosa, which will be helping in making the food soft and also helping in the digestion of the food also. And these crypts of Lieberkühn which are present, these will be releasing this all will be releasing the carboxypeptidases, whatever the enzymes we have studied, carboxypeptidases, dipeptidases, aminopeptidases, we have studied all these enzymes which will be helping in the breakdown of the enzymes in the body. So, these crypts of Lieberkühn will be releasing all these enzymes which will be helping in the production or the breakdown of the proteins into amino acids. Apart from these two will be the juices from this Brunner's gland and the crypts of Lieberkühn will be forming the intestinal juice. Intestinal juice, which is also called as succus entericus. What it is called as? Succus entericus. So, this is the juice of the intestinal glands which are being secreted. Apart from this, if you can take a look at the slide, children, at the below in the wall of the intestine you are having cells called as Paneth cells, Paneth cells. These cells which will be acting as the stem cells. Okay, children, what do you mean by stem cells? You know that whenever this process of digestion is taking place in our body, many cells are getting destroyed or they get repaired. So, these Paneth cells will be helping in the process of regenerating those cells back again to maintain the intestinal wall as it is. Apart from this, these Paneth cells will be also releasing the chemical or releasing the enzyme called as lysozyme. This lysozyme plays the same role as it has played in the salivary glands. Whatever the microorganisms which could not be destroyed in the mouth, in the stomach, they will be completely destroyed in the intestine, so that our body will be protected from the infections. Okay, just take a look at the slide, children. Intestinal juice, also called as succus entericus, it will be having the intestinal enzymes and mucus. What are the various intestinal enzymes? They are the peptidases, disaccharidases, intestinal lipase and enterokinase. All these will be helping in the process of breaking down of the carbohydrates, proteins and fats whichever are entering into the intestine, because intestine is the last organ where the complete digestion has to be completed. So, this was all about the intestinal glands. Now, the last gland which we have to study is about pancreas. What is the last gland? It is nothing but the pancreas. Pancreas is also having another name called as heterocrine gland. What do you mean by this heterocrine gland? Pancreas will be playing two major functions, children. One is the exocrine function, the other is the endocrine function. Exocrine function is something which has to do with the digestion, and endocrine function which has to do with the other system of our body called as the endocrine system, which you will be learning in your coming up lessons in your second year itself. Coming to the exocrine function, in the pancreas, whatever the cells are there, that is the acini cells they are called. These cells will be releasing the pancreatic juice. As you know, this pancreatic juice will be containing many enzymes which will be helping in the process of the digestion of the carbohydrates, proteins and some few fats also. You will be having the enzymes which will be helping in the digestion of the carbohydrates and fats and proteins. And coming to the endocrine function of this, there will be cells called as islets of Langerhans. Try to remember these names, children. Islets of Langerhans, which will be releasing two hormones called as insulin and glucagon. What are these two hormones called as? Insulin and glucagon. What are these two hormones and what is their role? You all might have known about diabetes, which have become very common nowadays. You would have seen any patient who is having diabetes taking insulin injections. Why do they take insulin, and what is the role played by this insulin? This insulin is a hormone which helps in the conversion of extra glucose in our body to glycogen. I told you during the function of the liver that whatever the extra glucose is there in our body, that is being converted into glycogen for future purpose whenever we need energy. So, this insulin is the important hormone which is helping in the conversion of the glucose into glycogen. So, when do we say that a patient is diabetic? When that patient loses the ability to convert that glucose into glycogen. You can see whenever they go for a blood test, the glucose will be above the normal level. Okay, why it is above the normal level? Because they have lose the ability to convert that glucose into glycogen and store it in the liver. Now, what is the function of this glucagon? Glucagon will be helping in converting the glucose again into glycogen into glucose. I told you, whenever we need energy and we don't take the food, whatever the stored food is there in our body, we convert that into glucose and use it. So, who is playing the important role over there again? Glucagon. So, these two are reverse in their process. Insulin is converting glucose into glycogen and storing in our body, whereas the glucagon is converting the whatever the glycogen is stored in the body into glucose for our purpose. So, pancreas is called as a heterocrine gland because it is performing the function of exocrine and endocrine glands. Do you remember, children, what do you mean by exocrine and endocrine glands? You have already studied in your school. Exocrine glands are the glands which will be releasing their secretions through the ducts. We have seen bile juice having bile duct, pancreatic juice having pancreatic duct, salivary glands having salivary duct. So, the glands which will be releasing their secretions through the ducts or pipe like structures, they are called as the exocrine glands. And endocrine glands are those glands which will be secreting their hormones, especially all the endocrine glands will be secreting the hormones directly into the blood. So, this is about the pancreas, children. Just take a look about it. Pancreas, look at the slide, children. It is performing both the exocrine gland function and endocrine gland function, which exocrine part is secreting the digestive juice, which is being released by the acinar cells or acini cells of the pancreas. Endocrine part will be releasing hormones, and what are those which are releasing the hormones? Islets of the Langerhans, they are called. Observe the exocrine part and endocrine part, children, clearly. See, this is the endocrine part. You can see at the islets of the Langerhans, you are having beta alpha cells over here, which you will be studying in detail when you move into endocrine system in our textbook or in our lessons. Just take a look at the summary, children. We are having 5 types of digestive glands, and every day about 1.5 liter of saliva is produced. And you know, liver is the most largest gland in our body. Pancreas is called as heterocrine gland, and intestinal glands are having Brunner's glands and crypts of Lieberkühn. Now, let us take a look at the project work. I have told you about all the digestive glands, where are they located, what are their secretions and functions. So, draw a tabular column where you write the name of the gland, where it is located, and what is it secreting and what is its function. And describe the journey of a cheese sandwich eaten by Rahul in the form of a story. Now, try to use your skills of writing stories, how you do it in your languages, whether it may be in English or Telugu. Try to use all the things and write down the story so that you know what is happening to the food once it is entering into our body. And also make a model of the digestive system. I have just kept a pic of the model who have done it on the shed itself. That is a T-shirt where he has done the pic, how all the organs are placed in it. You can use any household material, you need not have to go outside, whatever the pipes or whatever which is available to you, and try to do it so that you can know the complete structure of the digestive system. And I have given even a link of a song related to digestive system, children. Try to take a pic of it. Whenever you get the time, try to type the link in YouTube. You are having a wonderful song which is explaining you the whole process of digestion with a rhythmic note so that you can remember it in a very easy way. Try to complete the whole project work and try to see both the sessions of digestive system which I have taught you earlier and this, so that you can link both of this and understand the complete digestive system on a whole. I hope you all have understood it, children. Try to do the project work to know how much you have understood yourself, and then try to do it on your own, and then take the support of the textbooks or try to watch the video again if you have not understood it. Thank you, children.